Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus presented by SM Racing Products Oval Series. Tonight, after a bit of a hiatus that unfortunately we have not been able to broadcast the last couple of weeks, but we are working on getting those previous races put up on a tape delay here on the channel. But tonight, here live from the Darlington Raceway for the Darlington 125, kicking off season number 16 and subsequently kicking off the final stint in this 2024 Gen 4 Championship. To fill y'all in on last season, since we weren't able to broadcast that final race of season number 15, it was Mark Royce who just barely eked over the edge on Brandon Feeney for the season 15 championship. But in the overall 2024 Gen 4 championship, right now, it's Brandon Feeney that still leads the way with a 174-point lead over Jason Gardner. But of course, we have 12 weeks left to go before we put a cap on this 2024 Gen 4 championship. And of course, another 12 weeks before we crown another 12-week champion here as well. So, for some of these drivers that aren't going for the overall 2024 championship, this is a clean slate for them to try and put something together for the shorter term championship. Of course, back here at Darlington, though, opened up back in 1950, a very historic track that has been around just about as long as NASCAR has. Second time the league has visited this track, though. Of course, last time it was visited was for the Darlington 100 back in the early goings of the 2024 Gen 4 Championship. And honestly, it's a little crazy to think about, but that was 5 months ago and still in the same 2024 season that we are doing. This oval, a bit of an egg shape though. Turns 1 and 2 are different than turns 3 and 4. Turns 1 and 2 have 25 degrees of banking, a bit tighter. 3 and 4, 23 degrees of banking. So with these car setups, you really just kind of have to set them up to be good in one set of corners and not so good in the other. It's really difficult to make a setup that is good for all 4 corners at this speedway. And of course, we are still following along with the 2020, still following along with the 2003 real world NASCAR racing season. Back in 2003, this race, the Southern 500, was won by none other than Terry Labonte. So we'll just have to see how things shake up here tonight. 125 laps will be the distance for tonight's event. Of course, running quarter length to the real world distances. That said, though, drivers are making their way down to the starting grid, so how about we take a look down here at how things will be shaking up here this evening. Starting out on the pole here tonight, multi-time league champion in that number 85 machine. That is going to be none other than the Nihon Tiger number 85 of Brian Zabelski. And you can see on the back of that car, there is the Twitch logo on there, Mr. Twitch.tv/Nihon Tiger, live streaming his point of view of the race as he starts off on the pole here tonight. Starting out beside him in the 188, that's going to be the K9P Racing entry out of Medford, Wisconsin. That's going to be none other than Mr. Joshua Rudolph. Back in third, that's going to be the number 93 of Jason Gardner, League Administrator, starting off in position number 3. And I actually don't think he's made the call to the starting grid, so we might not see him out there. Back and forth, though, going to be the 38 Liqui entry, one of our Canadian drivers here. That's going to be Brandon Feeney, current points leader in the 2024 championship, rolling off position number 4. Back in fifth, that's going to be Michael Sparks in the 42, rocking a new paint scheme here this evening. Going to be running in the Mountain Dew entry, with Corey Logan in the CZ Robotics 24 starting to his outside. Back in sixth, driver out of Noonan, Georgia. Then back in seventh in the STP entry, that is going to be none other than Daniel Sparks. That said, the pace car is off. We're getting ready to make this thing rolling here. Green flag racing in Darlington. And just like that, green flag up in the air here for the first time in season number 16 of the ASRC Oval Series. And Ryan Zabelski off to an early lead here, pulling a nearly half a second lead just like that over the rest of the field here. Nose to tail just behind for Joshua Rudolph and Brandon Feeney, though. As we head down the back straightaway, down into turns 3 and 4 for the first time, Feeney looks low as Daniel Sparks drifts way up high back there in the 4th position. Nearly getting a little bit of the Darlington stripe in the early goings of this one, but manages to keep it out of the wall. He lives to drive another lap here this evening, race fans. Now Feeney starting to pull away from Rudolph and the rest of the field here. This battle shaking up between Sabelski and Feeney, and also looks like we are doing 92 laps and not 125, which is not what I had written down for the schedule here, but you know what? It's good enough for me. Side by side for the race lead, though, and it looks like Brandon Feeney going to take the lead just like that. Down through turns 1 and 2. Brandon Feeney, your new race leader, but Sabelski is coming on back just behind in that Nihon Tiger 85. Slowly closing the distance, especially as Feeney gets loose coming out of turn number 2. That's going to allow Sabelski to come side by side down 3 and 4. But he's not going to be close enough to make it. Just behind Rudolph and Sparks side by side. Corey Logan right in there as well, trying to get a piece of that battle. Rudolph falls back behind Sparks, falls back behind Logan, now side by side for 4th, heading down into the corner. Corey drifting up just a little bit there in that 24 machine, but keeps it off the wall and is going to be able to clear Joshua Rudolph just like that. Jason Gardner apparently says he's feeling ill, not going to be making the call to the race here tonight. Unfortunate to see that driver not going to be able to make it out here and earn points here for the first race of season number 16. But of course, that is what drop weeks are for, race fans. So no big deal. He still has the opportunity to get back into it and maybe have some better luck later on down in the season. Up at the front, though, Brandon Feeney leads the way. Sabelski just behind. This is the closest battle on the speedway right now between these two drivers. Feeney right now currently tied with Sabelski for the fastest lap at a 30.01. The rest of the field right now setting times in the 30.2 to 30.5 range and pretty much anywhere in between there. So immediately things getting pretty spread out here this evening. And we have gotten word from Mr. Jason Gardner, who looks like he's going to be doing race control for us here tonight, is correcting that 92 laps is 125 miles, and that would make sense. Darlington is not a mile-long speedway. Little known fact. Still looking down at this battle between Feeney and Sabelski, though. They are neck and neck and just absolutely pulling away from the rest of the field here. Now up to a 2-second gap between these two race leaders and the whole rest of the field. Mind you, Feeney has been competing full-time here in the ASRC Oval Series. Brian Sabelski has not, so Sabelski really isn't all that much in the running for the championship right now, for the overall 2024 championship. Right now, Sabelski back in 15th in that overall 2024 championship right now, just behind Kevin West and Daniel Ott. Last season, for season number 15, Sabelski brought it home in 13th overall in the standings, just making, looks like 5 starts out of the 12 races. So I'd imagine it might end up being the same story for Sabelski this season as well, where he's mostly just going for individual wins rather than trying to aim for the overall championship, because I'm pretty sure he said that he's not going to be able to run full-time this season, same as the last 2 seasons. But always great to see him out here on the speedway. He's a longtime veteran of the ASRC league as a whole. Ran back in the Oval Series, or in the Road Series, and was actually very dominant in it back in the Road Series was around. And of course, battling for wins when he does show up to the Oval Series nowadays, and back when he was able to run the Oval Series full-time, able to take home multiple championships in the series. So definitely a force to contend with in that number 85 machine, but just up in front of him in that 38 Liquid Molly entry, that is going to be Brandon Feeney, who of course has been comparatively a newcomer to the series. Of course, he's not brand new to the ASRC Oval Series. He's been running here for about a year now. But considering that the ASRC Oval Series is in its 16th season of competition, he is technically still a newcomer compared to some of these longtime veterans of the series. And in his time here, though, Feeney has racked up multiple wins, come very close to championships multiple times in a row. And of course, leading the race right now here at Darlington. So that driver out of Canada, definitely a force to be reckoned with. seemingly regardless of what car we throw at him. Of course, drives a lot of short track series here on the iRacing.com platform. Also a short track driver in the real world up in Canada. But able to show he knows how to handle these bigger ovals in these NASCAR Gen 4 cars as well. As I say that, he gets scraped up against the outside wall, and that's going to allow Sabelski to clear him just like that. I'd imagine we're going to see this 38 machine striking back here in the next couple of laps, though. Feeney is not a driver to go down without a fight. Taking a look a little bit further back here, Daniel Sparks currently running back and forth, kind of in a bubble all by himself. You can see Corey Logan just behind, slowly starting to close in here. Got it down to about half of a second gap between the two of them. Now closing it down to 0.4 of a second. Logan definitely gaining some speed here over the course of this lap, but I don't think it's going to be enough to reach the rear bumper of Daniel Sparks. Looking at their previous lap times, it looks like Logan was 0.005 of a second faster than Sparks just about, but now Sparks beginning to pull away here through turns 3 and 4. So kind of a game of cat and mouse going on between these two drivers right now. As further back, Joshua Rudolph and Michael Sparks, both are just kind of on their own right now. You can see Rudolph way back there in that 188 machine. Sparks, you honestly can't even see. It looks like he's having a bit of trouble there in that Mountain Dew entry. Currently running about 15 seconds back from our race leader right now. 8 seconds back from Joshua Rudolph up in 5th. Currently down 1 position from where he qualified. Joshua Rudolph down -3. A couple of these race drivers still kind of having their hats in the ring for the 2024 championship right now, though. Of course, Jason Gardner, who is unfortunately unable to drive here tonight, is 2nd in the overall 2024 championship. Joshua Rudolph right now in that 188 machine is back in 3rd in the 2024 championship. Corey Logan is back in 4th in the 2024 championship right now. So a lot of these drivers, aside from duking it out here just for season number 16, they're trying to take home the overall 2024 championship here as well. Michael Sparks back in, looks like 6th in that overall championship. Daniel Sparks back in 8th. But really, all these drivers have been pretty consistent in their attendance here in 2024 as a whole, and that's what's got them all really up at the very top of the charts here for the 2024 championship. And as we get closer and closer into the closing stages of 2024, I really think we're going to see some of these drivers that, while they might be near the back of the pack here in tonight's race, I think we're going to see them potentially vying for the championship here along with Brandon Feeney come December. Right now, though, Sabelski is back up to the race lead. Brandon Feeney still trying to catch back up, still having a little bit of trouble here. Currently about 0.6 of a second back from our race leader here. And honestly, it's kind of unfortunate. Well, actually, I was going to say it would be unfortunate that Gardner's not able to race here tonight, because then it would be an even battle between Americans and Canadians here on the raceway. But no, my math is just wrong. Gardner not being in the race makes it an even battle between the Americans and the Canadians. Of course, we have Sabelski, Corey Logan, and Joshua Rudolph, all drivers here in the United States. Sabelski over in the West Coast area of things. Corey Logan down in Georgia. Joshua Rudolph up in Wisconsin. Then we got Michael Sparks and Daniel Sparks both in Calgary. And then Brandon Feeney up in the Ontario area in Canada. So who knows? Maybe this is a battle between the countries out here on the raceway. Maybe it's not. Might be looking a little bit too into things here. But either way, right now, Ryan Sabelski is leading the race for the proverbial Team America here tonight. Around the field, though, has gotten mighty spread out right now, though the closest battle is still this battle for the lead between Sabelski and Feeney. About 0.7 of a second dividing these two drivers here, as we're closing in on being a quarter of the way into tonight's event. Getting pretty close to being there. Of course, we will see drivers having to make pit stops here this evening at some point, potentially even two, depending on how this race goes. And Feeney having another scrape against the outside wall there. Just a little bit. That's going to cost him a bit of time here as well. Now 1.2 seconds back from our race leader of Mr. Brian Sabelski. Still a long way left to go here, though. It's going to be a big question of how these drivers manage to handle tire wear here this evening. And, of course, got to make sure that there aren't any blunders under your pit stops, especially if they happen under the green flag here tonight. Still a whole lot of racing left to come here from Darlington, and a winner is definitely not yet decided. That said, as Sabelski leads the field, Joshua Rudolph starting to close in here on Corey Logan. Logan having a bit of handling issues there in that CZ Robotics 24, and it looks like there might potentially be a little bit of steering damage for that 24 machine. A lot of wobbling and bobbing going down the back straightaway there. We'll have to keep an eye on them and see what happens coming down the front stretch, going through the corners. Now it's looking a little bit more stable for that CZ Robotics entry, but looks like Joshua Rudolph hot on their heels and really just not giving an inch here. I almost thought we might have gonna see a dive there coming through the turns 1 and 2 there, but not quite. We'll see how these drivers take 3 and 4. Logan down to the bottom, Rudolph out to the high side. Not going to be enough to close the distance up quite yet there, though. Another wiggle coming out of turn number 4, and that is going to allow Joshua Rudolph to get around that 24 machine going down into turns 1 and 2. And again, both drivers drifting up the track there just a little bit. Joshua Rudolph is going to make the pass stick and is now slowly starting to pull away from that 24 machine. We'll see if Corey can't make that ground back up, though. And big wiggle for Corey Logan coming out of the corner. Keeping the car under control, but that is going to move the gap all the way up to nearly 2 seconds, just like that. All it took was one little slip up, one little slide, and that has completely evaporated the gap between these two drivers, and now it is a matter of getting close to half a straightaway between Joshua Rudolph and Corey Logan, just like that. Up at the front, though, Sabelski continues to lead the field, and now Sabelski getting a little bit loose out of the corner. Same with Feeney. These drivers might be starting to heat up their right rears here a little bit. Sabelski going way up all the way to the wall. Not quite making contact here, but that still begs the question, are these drivers starting to burn up their tires here a little bit? Just up ahead, though, starting to catch up on some lap traffic. That is the 42 of Michael Sparks that Sabelski is closing in on here this evening. 27 laps in the books here, all under the green flag, and we'll see if this traffic manages to slow Sabelski down at all. Maybe give Feeney an opportunity to catch up, because now Feeney has fallen back a full 3 seconds behind our race leader here. So really everyone on the speedway, with the exception of Michael Sparks from Corey Logan, is just about evenly spread apart from each other right now. And Corey Logan, looks like Corey is going to be the first driver to make the call to come down pit lane as Sabelski gets around that lap car of Michael Sparks without too much difficulty. So let's take a look down, see how this pit stop goes for Corey Logan. I would imagine this is probably a scheduled pit stop for this driver. Unless they're just taking new tires because of the handling issues they were having, but who knows, might be just a part of the strategy for that number 24 machine, excuse me. Almost said 42 there, looking down there at Michael Sparks' pit sign. Maybe having to get some damage repaired here as well, though, because this is definitely a longer pit stop than normal for these Gen 4 cars. Been down on pit lane for over a minute now. We'll have to keep an eye on that. In the meantime, taking a look back up at our race leader here as they continue to work their way around this 1.3 mile long speedway. Corey Logan still down on pit lane here, going, looks like 2 laps down there. 54 seconds actually in their pit box here. But they make it back out onto the speedway. Looks like they are going to be scored 2 laps down here. No, 3 laps down actually for Corey Logan. So that damage repair definitely was costly. But now we see Sabelski coming down pit lane. Sabelski going to be the next taker down here. Will we see anyone come down here with him? Looks like so far the answer is no. The rest of the field elects to stay out here. We'll see. This should be a normal pit stop without any hiccups for Sabelski, as long as he doesn't get any penalties here, and I don't think he should. So this should be a better example of what a normal pit stop will look like for these drivers. Sabelski makes his way down, of course, has the first pick box for qualifying on pole. Going to be taking 4 tires here, presumably fuel with that as well for the number 85 machine. And the tires are on a 14-second pit stop for the driver of the number 85 machine. A lot more like what we would traditionally expect here in pit lane for these Gen 4 racing machines. Up at the front, there's a bit of a battle going on here. This is between Daniel Sparks and Joshua Rudolph. This is for the 3rd position right now as other drivers go laps down under their pit stops. I'd imagine what we're seeing here is probably Sparks and Rudolph electing to stay out to try and pick up the bonus points for leading a lap. Doesn't matter if it's a lap led from pace or from pit strategy. A lap led is a lap led, and a bonus point to your name in the early goings of the season could definitely be very helpful to these drivers later down the line. Right now, though, Feeney is still electing to stay out on the speedway, so until he comes down, Sparks and Rudolph just kind of have to wait for their opportunity to get it. And of course, that might be a dangerous game to play because we know Feeney loves to try and run an alternate fuel strategy, alternate pit strategy, and throw a bit of a curveball at the field here. So we'll see if Sparks and Rudolph wait out Feeney, and inevitably, if they try to wait out Feeney, that means they're going to have to end up committing to Feeney's strategy. And I don't know if either of these drivers are going to be willing to do that, or if they'd be more comfortable sticking with their main strategy that we see the field doing here. Bit of a scrape against the outside wall there for that number 4 machine, though. That's going to allow Rudolph to close up the gap even further here. Rudolph pulls down low. Looks like he might try and make a move down here going into the corner. Not quite able to make it work. Drifts up the track. Scrapes against the outside wall. And Feeney is going to make the call to come down pit lane. So that will have Daniel Sparks be scored as the race leader for at least 1 lap. That will be a bonus point to Daniel Sparks' name. Now the question is, will Rudolph play the game of chicken with Sparks and try to stay out an extra lap longer than that number 4 machine so he can pick up a bonus point as well? Or is he just going to say screw the bonus point and come down pit lane early? Looks like Sparks is going to make the call to come down here, and Rudolph stays out. So that will have Rudolph picking up his bonus point here as well for at least 1 lap led. Now we'll have Sabelski filtering back out to the race lead. Looking down at these pit stops here, Feeney on his way out with a 14.6 second pit stop, so 1/10 of a second faster than Sabelski's was earlier in tonight's event. We'll now have to see what the pit crew can do for Daniel Sparks. I'd imagine there might be a little bit of damage repair to do after that little scrape against the outside wall. If he even elects to take it, he might just say ignore the damage and let me go. 14.4 second stop for Sparks, so sure enough, it sounds like that's exactly what he did. He just said screw the damage, let me go, and he managed to have the fastest pit stop of the evening so far. Next up, though, going to be the 188 of Joshua Rudolph, and that just leaves Michael Sparks, who hasn't pitted yet. We'll see how things go for Rudolph down here on pit lane, though. As Michael Sparks also makes his way down pit lane, so he will be the last driver to come down, and that will complete the pit cycle here this evening, and have Sabelski filter back out as your race leader. A 16-second pit stop for Joshua Rudolph, so a little bit slower than these other drivers, so that just leaves Michael Sparks here to make his way on down into his pit box, and there is a decent chunk of damage on that Mountain Dew number 42. We will have to see, will he take the extra time to get that damage repaired or not? And it looks like no, he will not. 15-second stop for Michael Sparks. He's going to make his way back out onto the racetrack and not worry about the damage. And honestly, it's not a particularly bad amount of damage, so I don't think it's going to be too major of a deal that he didn't get that fixed. But that will complete the pit cycle here. Brian Sabelski, excuse me, going to be your race leader here with a 12-second lead over Feeney. There is a little bit of a battle going on here between Michael Sparks and Corey Logan. Both these drivers are battling to be the lucky dog right now. Of course, with Brian Sabelski right there in this battle, that's going to put Sparks 2 laps down, and if Logan can't pull away here, that will be putting Logan 2 laps down here as well. And sure enough, Logan keeps it high, gets into the outside wall. That's going to move Logan down 2 laps, and now we have a battle going on here between Logan and Michael Sparks for the lucky dog position here in tonight's event. Of course, all of that hinges on the assumption that the caution flag will come down, which, with how things have been going so far here tonight, it's entirely possible we won't see the yellow flag fly at all, in which case Corey and Michael are both kind of out of luck here, because even on pit strategy, there's not really any way for both these drivers to make a whole 2 laps up on the rest of the field. And Corey's up in the outside wall. That's going to allow Michael Sparks to close in. Will we see Sparks make the move? No, not quite, but still nose to tail in this battle between these two drivers. Corey up high. Sparks runs more in the middle of the speedway right now. And once again, we see Sparks slowly starting to fall back here just a little bit. Just not quite able to close that gap up here. Once again, trying to make the move happen, but just not quite close enough to get up to there. Right on board here with Michael Sparks. Closing it down to about 0.2 of a second through the corners, but just never quite close enough to make it work here. Both drivers getting a little bit loose there through 3 and 4. Sparks pulls down low, tries to get the nose in there, not quite able to do it as they head back down the front straightaway. Now heading down into turns 1 and 2, and Sparks loses that advantage between the two of them. Now up to 0.3 of a second once again. Well, it seems like Sparks is doing his best through 3 and 4, so we'll see if he manages to make something work here. Sends it in real deep, and there's contact. Corey Logan goes almost around. Side by side, they're still making contact. Corey up into the high side, and that is some pretty hefty damage on the number 24. That might be the end of the event here for that 24 machine with how heavy that damage is. We'll see if they can still keep it turning, and it looks like it is still going to turn for that 24 machine, but that is some hefty damage on there as Brandon Feeney comes up back behind, going to try and work on lapping that 24 machine himself. Definitely an unfortunate situation to see between those two drivers. We will get a replay here in just a moment as Feeney gets around Logan. Let's take a look back here, see what happened between these two drivers. Already you can kind of see where things went wrong here. Michael Sparks just carrying maybe a bit too much speed through the corner there, and that's kind of all she wrote. Just one good little nudge is all it took to send that driver in the outside wall, and then a second bit of contact as Logan tried to save it, and that's going to be a second bit of damage into the outside wall there. So Corey still out the speedway, still running, but now 4 seconds behind Michael Sparks right now. Michael also still having damage from that incident as well. Both these drivers still running 2 laps down right now though, so currently it's just kind of a battle for the lucky dog position between these two drivers. Up at the front though, Brian Sabelski still leads the way with an 8-second lead, a whole lot of dominant force behind that number 85 here this evening. Looking at the drivers' fastest laps, Brian Sabelski at 29.8, Brandon Feeney at 29.82, Daniel Sparks at 29.97, a 30.01 for Rudolph, a 30.6 for Michael Sparks, 30.37 for Corey Logan. So a lot of variance in top speed here on the speedway right now. But for now, we're going to take a moment, we're going to ride on board with Brian Sabelski, watch the leader turn some laps from the onboard perspective, and take a moment to appreciate the sounds of these wonderful Gen 4 NASCAR machines. Feeney looking like he's starting to have a little bit of handling issues here as we close into the closing chapters of tonight's event. As you can see here, Daniel Sparks is starting to catch up to that number 38 machine in that STP racing entry here. Daniel at +4 from where he qualified, and all things considered, having a very solid race so far here this evening. And it looks like Feeney is going to pull it down low and go ahead and let Sparks go by, as it looks like he's starting to get a lot of damage to the right front of that 38 machine. So that will cost Feeney position. Well, we're riding on board with that 38 machine as well. We also saw Corey Logan come down pit lane for the second time here this evening. So that's going to put Logan 4 laps down now. But closing into the final chapters here of tonight's event here at Darlington, getting ready to be just about 30 laps to go here in the next couple of laps. Brian Sabelski continued to leading the field with a dominant run here tonight. And of course, we talked a moment ago about the top lap times right now here this evening, but something curious to look at right now is the top speed these drivers have hit here as well. Right now, Brian Sabelski, the fastest driver, who has hit a top speed of 195 miles an hour, compared to Daniel Sparks actually has the second most right now, managed to reach 184. So definitely interesting to see, and I'm not super sure how Sabelski managed to reach 195 without any draft, but you know what? I'm not going to question what the timing and scoring board machine says. We're just going to roll with it here. As Sparks continues to pull away here. Now Brandon Feeney going to take the call down to pit lane, and I think he's a little bit fed up with how that machine is handling here. Was definitely having some issues with the tires in these last couple of laps, sliding all over the place more often in the wall than not. I'll tell you what, he's really earning that Darlington stripe if nothing else. Someone's got to do it. It's just a rite of passage here at Darlington, so it's only fair that it happens at some point. Joshua Rudolph is also making the call to come down pit lane here as well, though, in that 188 machine. Sabelski and Sparks continuing to stay out, though, so that has me a bit curious. Nope, now Sabelski's coming down for the second pit stop here of the evening. I was about to say, I'm wondering if Sabelski is going to try and go all the way, but it looks like no, he is not. He's going to make the call down to pit lane here. I'd imagine we're going to see a pit time roughly around what we saw last time for these drivers. Rudolph still down in his pit box right now. You can see him down there in the 188 machine as Sabelski ever so nonchalantly phases through him. 14.7 second stop for Joshua Rudolph, so right around the expected range. And we'll see how things shape up for Sabelski. Now Daniel Sparks made the call down. Sabelski a 15 second stop, so a little bit slower there this time around for his pit crew. Of course, he had a 14.7 second stop the stop before. So now we're going to see what Daniel Sparks' team can do for him here. As technically right now he is the race leader. Of course that will change as Sabelski comes back around the speedway here, but we'll see what they can do here for Daniel Sparks as he makes his way into the pit stall of that number 4 machine. And a 14.4 second stop, so twice now Sparks' crew has just absolutely been on it here this evening. Pretty sure he had a 14.4 for both of his stops here this evening. So great work by his crew to get that car serviced in a timely manner. As a big slide up there from Brandon Feeney, right? Getting big time loose coming out of turn number 2. Trying to get those new tires on that 38 machine up to temperature so he can really start pushing this car. Of course, he has a 12-second deficit he needs to worry about making up, and of course, Daniel Sparks is right behind him here. And Sparks is a battle for position. This is for the second spot between these two drivers. And Feeney still having a bit of trouble there in that 38 machine. Of course, Feeney is the championship points leader in the overall 2024 championship, so every position really counts for that 38 machine. I don't believe he's managed to take home a win in a single 12-week season so far, but taking home the 36-week championship really kind of might just be the ultimate bragging right for that 38 machine if he manages to pull it off. Either way, still wibbling and wobbling like crazy here. Pulls it down to the bottom of the speedway. I think just trying to break the draft with Daniel Sparks there. Still losing ground even in the corners though. He's going to drift up. Sparks is going to pull it up alongside. And coming out of turn number 4, Sparks has the second position once again. Every other driver on the raceway is currently a lap down right now though. So as long as no caution flag comes out here in these final 25 laps, it looks like our podium more or less is locked in. Right now there's about a 4-second gap between... Uh-oh. Well, something just happened to Joshua Rudolph. Looks like he's trying to bring it down pit lane and just not quite able to do it. It looks like the right front on that machine is broken. So let's jump a little bit further back and see if we can't try and figure out what happened to Joshua Rudolph. You can see there's something dragging really bad underneath that 188 machine. There is something definitely broken there. Scrapes it against the inside wall, and then of course that's where we picked him up with the initial replay, but even then I think we're going to need to go even further back to try and diagnose what happened to Joshua Rudolph there. So it jumped back a whole extra lap and a half now just to try and figure out what happened to that 188 machine. We are still under the green flag right now, so a caution has not flown for this incident. But I'm just trying to figure out what happened that broke the 188 machine so bad, because there was definitely some major stuff dragging underneath that machine. So far, so good. Whatever had to have happened would have to be pretty much in this next corner. And I'm not seeing what happened to him. Still looking fine for him so far. I'm honestly not sure what happened to the 188 machine. We have Corey Logan scraping up some... Oh my! Big contact for both of those drivers there, and that's going to leave probably both of these cars crippled for the remainder of tonight's event. That was quite an amount of airtime for Corey Logan right there. What a wild time, and to think a caution flag did not come out for that. We are still under the green here with 20 laps to go. Logan still is out on the racetrack, but Joshua Rudolph is down on pit lane, has been down there for about 2 minutes now. He did end up having to take the tow down to pit lane. So that's going to be Joshua Rudolph's night effectively over. Corey Logan here down 3 laps, so I don't think the chances of Logan getting 8 positions back are super good. Michael Sparks really just has to depend on a caution flag flying to get a spot back. Looks like Sparks is going to actually come down pit lane again here. And so that leaves Sabelski, Daniel Sparks, and Brandon Feeney as your 3 drivers still on the lead lap. All 3 of them have already completed their final pit stop for the evening. It's just going to be a matter of raw pace here for these final 18 laps. Looking at how similar the lap times are, I really don't think we're going to see this gap close up between any of these drivers. Right now, Sabelski, last time by a 30.23, a 30.49 for Daniel Sparks, then a 31.26 for Feeney, who of course is still running with that damage. So really, it's seeming like unless something absolutely catastrophic happens here in these final 17 laps, we effectively see the running order, how it's going to finish between these drivers. That said, Corey Logan and Michael Sparks now are both 3 laps down, so at least the 2 of them will be able to battle for the 4th position here. Of course, both of them will also be battling for the Lucky Dog spot, but they would require 3 cautions to get back up onto the lead lap here, which I don't think they're going to have the luxury of finding. Right now, it's about 8 seconds different between Corey and Michael Sparks right now. And of course, with 16 laps left to go, I mean, anything can happen, but I really don't think we're going to be seeing 3 caution flags slide here tonight. With how clean things have been so far, I don't think it's going to happen. And to be fair, this actually was one of the more caution-heavy races when we ran it earlier in the season, back in, I believe it was maybe August that we ran the first Darlington race. No, it was actually April that we ran the first Darlington race, and that race had a whole lot of craziness going on to it. So all things considered, tonight has been a lot quieter, a lot calmer for a lot of these drivers. And right now, Brian Zabelski looks to be more or less on a Sunday cruise, on his way to a victory here in these final 14 laps. As long as nothing goes wrong for him, he should be pretty good to go here tonight. Of course, looking out into the later goings of the season here for these final 12 races of the 2024 championship. After tonight, we head to the Richmond Raceway for the second time here in 2024. Then we head on over to New Hampshire for the second time this year. Then following New Hampshire, we have Dover for the second time. Then we have our second Talladega race. Then we head on over to Kansas, and looks like Kansas will actually be the first time the league has been there. Then we go to Charlotte after that, then heading down to the second Martinsville race. Then we have a second Atlanta race, a first Phoenix race. This is actually back before Phoenix had 2 races, so we'll be heading to Phoenix after that. Then Rockingham on November 25th before we crown the 2024 champion at the Homestead Miami Speedway on December 2nd. And of course, it's only September right now, so we still have a long way left to go here in the 2024 championship. And a long way left to go here in Season 16 of the ASRC Oval Series as well. But as Sabelski makes his way around the speedway here, going to have a little bit of a scrape against the outside wall, but no big deal. He's got 13 seconds of lead to play with. He is going to get the double high five from Barney the Flagman, though. Going to be 10 laps left to go here at Darlington. And right now, Sabelski just has to make his way around the track. He does not have anyone else to worry about right now. As long as he doesn't make any major mistakes, he is pretty much in the clear to just roll around here. If we take a top-down look at things, of course, you see Sabelski down there heading down the front straightaway. The next closest driver is on the backstretch right now. That is Daniel Sparks running back in second. Then back in third, even further back, is Brandon Feeney. So you can see just how far things have gotten spread out here between these drivers tonight. But Brian Zabelski has put on a heck of a show, and really all of these drivers have put on a very solid running here this evening. I'm definitely excited to see what these drivers will be able to put together when we head to Richmond next week for a little bit of short track action. But for now, 8 to go here at Darlington. Call that probably around 11 or 12 miles. I swear I know how to do math. You get the point. We are in the very final closing stages of tonight's race. These 3 drivers should all be good to go on fuel, all fine on their tires. It's just going to be a matter of pacing their way to the finish. As you see down there, that 24 of Corey Logan pulling down to the bottom of the speedway, getting out of the way of Sabelski. And the gap just keeps getting bigger. Now 14 seconds between our race leader and Daniel Sparks back in second. But for what it's worth, Daniel Sparks, I believe, Let me double check here. Yeah, Daniel Sparks right now is on his way to potentially get his best ever finish in the league right now in that number 4 machine. I'm looking down, at least here for the 2024 championship. And it looks like his best finish in the league was back at Pocono on August 5th, and he got a 3rd place finish there. So Mr. Daniel Sparks is currently looking to potentially take home his first ever runner-up position here in ASRC. Of course, Brandon Feeney has taken home multiple wins here in the league and more podiums than we could possibly count. So Feeney, not a super big surprise to see up here, but definitely a very solid achievement for that number 4 machine of Daniel Sparks. Big high five up in the air though. 5 laps left to go here at Darlington for Brian Sabelski, and he is up in the outside wall. Brian, don't go up there. You still got an 18-second lead to play with, but no need to be flirting with death on the outside wall, picking up a Darlington stripe there. Now going to be 4 to go, and Feeney gets around Daniel Sparks. Sparks is having a whole lot of trouble here. Sparks is making it down to pit lane. I spoke too soon. Daniel Sparks may not be on the way to take home his first second place finish after all. What happened to Daniel? We'll take a quick look back here, try and figure out what the deal is. Already down at the bottom of the speedway. Looks like he maybe just got loose there. I'm not quite sure what happened to him. So that's going to bump Daniel Sparks down to the 3rd position as he comes down pit lane. If he doesn't have a short stop down there, then we might see Michael Sparks and Corey looking it around here as well. 3 laps left to go here at Darlington, though, and not exactly the time you want to be making a pit stop here this evening, race fans. And Sparks has already been down there faster than a scheduled pit stop, or slower than a scheduled pit stop would be. So things are not looking good for that number 4 machine. 2 laps left to go here at Darlington as Sabelski rockets down the back straightaway with a 20-second lead over the rest of the field. And as he heads through turns 3 and 4 here, white flag going to be going up in the air this time by Daniel Sparks exits pit lane. So he will be able to secure a podium position here as the white flag goes up. One more lap around the Darlington Raceway before we crown our first winner of the 2024, well, not the 2024 Gen 4 Championship, but the first winner of season number 16. And sure enough, just like that, coming out of turn number 4, Sabelski takes home the checkered flag for his 25th win in the ASRC Oval Series. I had to do a quick bit of counting there through his league stats, but this will be the 25th win for Brian Sabelski in the ASRC Oval Series since our first race all the way back in December of 2020. Win number 25 is certainly nothing to scoff at. Fishing back in second will be Brandon Feeney back in the 38 with Daniel Sparks rounding out the podium though. And Sabelski going to pull it down to the start-finish line. He is going to burn it down here as he takes home the first win of season number 16. Sabelski leading the race, just shy of a 21-second lead over the rest of the field. Certainly a dominant display by that number 85 machine. And Sabelski, honestly, he was looking really good last time at Darlington as well, but unfortunately was caught up in a pretty major incident in the later goings of our first Darlington race. So it's nice to see that driver have a little bit of a redemption arc here tonight after everything that happened back in that April Darlington race. But while Sabelski makes his way around the speedway to celebrate his win, we will be back here in just a moment as we get some words with your top 3 finishers here tonight. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Darlington Raceway. Welcome back to the ASRC Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Been a heck of a race here at Darlington, and up here in the broadcast booth with me is none other than Mr. Brian Sabelski, who is taking home his 25th ASRC Oval Series win here tonight. Brian, how are you feeling?
Really good. That was uh, pretty much executed that exactly how I wanted to. So that was kind of like textbook, textbook Darlington race. Just keep her out of trouble. Don't crash the car. Launch the tires. Uh, Pretty much what you'd want to do to really do well around here. The line felt good all night. Really was getting in the corners well. So yeah, all in all, felt really good tonight.
I guess would you consider this maybe a little bit of a I'm blanking on the word I'm going for here, but considering that you got wrecked out of the last Darlington race, I would imagine this one is a little bit more how you were expecting that first one to go.
Well, yeah, the first Darlington race, I was also still trying to get my hands around this car and figure out how to drive it and everything. So I've had a little bit more experience since then, kind of figured it out. So yeah, definitely a much better result and what I kind of would be hoping more to do. But yeah, it definitely was a good time tonight.
Yeah, in the early goings of this one, you and Feeney were having some really crazy close battles. Were you worried at any point that he might still be there with you at the end of this thing?
Um, I don't know if worried would be the right word. I don't think I'd be worried about somebody being with me there at the end. Did I think he would? I think he could. I think he definitely could have. He's always had pace and he's always been really quick. So I just didn't know what his strategy was going to be or if he'd burn stuff off before before that first pit stop. And I kind of got around him. I think he got the wall a couple times, just slowed him down enough that that plus maybe maybe having a little bit less good tire wear. I don't know how that all shook out, but tires are everything around here. So I was just focused on keeping the tires under me, keeping them nice and keep the car nice and neutral as much as I can. Just run the line around here, and hopefully everything would work out.
Fair enough. It certainly seemed to play into your favor, taking home the checkered flag with a 21-second lead over the rest of the field. Next week, though, heading on over to the Richmond Raceway. How are you feeling about doing a little bit of short tracking?
I would say if you thought tonight was something, just wait till next week. If there's any one track that I think that is my strongest track, especially my strongest short track, it's Richmond. It's the one I've always had the most success at. So, really looking forward to next week. Um, Probably do a little bit of practice ahead of time with this car, but I always feel really comfortable there. I've had a couple of wins in various leagues at Richmond so far this year, so looking at hopefully to add to that next week too. That would be fantastic.
Well, fair enough. I mean, it's good to have something to look forward to, especially taking home your 25th win here tonight. Maybe you'll be able to make it 26 next week. The question, too, also, are we going to be able to see you running a little bit more full time here this season?
Yep, everything's wrapped up, so I should be here. I think except for maybe some trips that I will be taking for work for a week or two here. I should be here enough of the season to put a good run at the at least the season 4 championship, not the overall. I haven't been here enough to do that, but I should be here for most of the races.
Good deal. Sounds like we have some exciting races to look forward to then. But of course, before I let you go here for tonight, of course, win number 25 to your name here in the ASRC Oval Series. The microphone is all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who do you want to thank for putting everything together for you?
Oh well, obviously, and thanks for broadcasting. It's good to have you back, buddy. Uh, always good to have a broadcast. Of course, uh, Jason and everyone here at ASRC for putting the league on. Bummed he couldn't race tonight because he wasn't feeling well. So get well soon, bud. Um, Maconi Setup Shop, obviously official setup shop at eNASCAR. It's been good working with them and so far, and hopefully we'll get to be working with them for quite a while to come. As some racing products, not only for doing all the fun sponsoring stuff for this series, but for their nice button box, which I was using tonight to play around with the brake bias when I was coming into pits, so I didn't lock up and spin. Um, yeah, good quality product. Really happy with it. Um, yeah, I guess also shout out to the folks over at FTF. Just wrapped up the Grand National Series over there, which is where I was previously. Um, yeah, it's good learning experience running the Xfinity car there. I think some of that's transferred over to some of the other cars I run. So all in all, yeah, it's and everyone hanging out in my Twitch channel. Hi everyone, good to have you here.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on win number 25. And I look forward to seeing you at Richmond next week.
Thank you.
And finishing back in second, Mr. Brandon Feeney, another podium to your name. I've honestly stopped counting them at this point because it feels like it's basically every race. And you continue to hang on to your overall 2024 championship lead by a pretty comfortable margin. So, how are you feeling here tonight?
Not bad. It's I just seen your broadcast and I'm like, well, what can I do to go talk to Aiden? Decided the podium was good enough.
Fair enough. I mean, I guess that's one motivation for it. Coming to harass me, you know what? Why not?
It's not harassment if you like it.
Okay, well, fair enough. I'll give you that one. Coming into tonight's event, though, you had a whole lot of speed under the hood of that 38 machine. What do you think might have gone different for you to be taking home a checkered flag?
7 car pileup probably would have helped. But no, honestly, I'm really not good at this track because running with red light, a lot of fast guys there, and I just knew if I could get by Brian for a couple laps there, get a couple bonus points, and work you at that championship, which I think we have 12 races or so left, and just try to work on points and maybe actually, you know, close this deal out.
Fair enough. That seems like a pretty solid plan to me. And Of course, if the last 24 races are anything to go by, I'd say your chances are looking pretty good. Next week, though, heading on over to the Richmond Raceway. How are you feeling about heading over there?
Now that Brian's back, definitely have a new pace setter here. Me and Brian traded wins off a few seasons ago, uh, and it seems like every time we lose one fast guy, we have another fast guy pop back in. So probably be back on the podium again, but we'll see how it goes. It's another place you can burn tires up really fast, and if you don't keep this thing underneath you, you're just gonna junk it early and have a bad day.
Fair enough. I mean, we got a pretty decent selection of tracks left to go through. A couple of super speedways, a couple of the smaller traps, and pretty much everything in between, but no road courses this season, so we don't got to worry about that. But either way, I think it's bound to be a pretty exciting conclusion to this 2024 championship.
Well, we're trying to make it interesting as we can. Like I said, Brian kind of stunk the field up there, but didn't help that I destroyed the wall like 6 or 7 times. I had about 3 minutes of damage last pit stop that I didn't want to spend time fixing. But yeah, it is what it is. I think maybe if I could have kept the car clean, maybe I could have played a couple strategy games to try to catch Brian. But my honestly, the only way Brian was losing that race is if he screwed up on pit road or we had a late race yellow and didn't have tires and I did.
Fair enough. Well, still a podium to your name here tonight. And before I let you head out for the evening, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Feeney. Who you want to thank for making everything happen?
I gotta thank you for having the broadcast back. We've missed you the last couple of weeks. Um, Honestly, have some people go check out the Feeney Call photography page and Feeney Call podcast. We still have the contest of the Ladies in Motorsports Oval going on until next Friday. And if you're up in Canada, we're running playoff seasons and our races and stuff like that. So make sure you check out your local short track. And if not, take somebody with you.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Richmond.
Okay, bye, little buddy.
And finishing back in position number 3 in that STP number 4, taking home his second podium of the season, going to be none other than Mr. Daniel Sparks. Daniel, how are you feeling here tonight?
Definitely a little disappointed here. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it looked in the last couple of laps there like you were setting to take home your first runner-up position here in the league. What happened there in those final closing laps?
Yeah, Feeney asked me if I'd smacked the wall, and I had smacked the wall, but I didn't get any damage. And then I was trying to switch to driver chat to tell him that, and I really hit the wall that time, and I got the meatball.
Well, that is certainly unfortunate to hear. I guess that's just a little bit of part of racing, though. Sometimes these things happen. You still managed to walk away with the podium here tonight, so you do have that to your name.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was still a really good race up until that point. I'm still very happy with the rest of the race. I mean, I was just hitting my marks all race, and it felt really good. So,
Yeah, you definitely showed a whole lot of speed here tonight in that number 4 machine. Aside from that little slip up that got you the meatball down at the end, what do you think might have had to have gone differently for you to be potentially taking home your first checkered flag here?
um, probably just firing off that very first green flag, to be honest. Maybe if I qualified, I just wasn't confident with my start, but I did end up starting pretty good. So if I had qualified, maybe I could have been up there fighting against Feeney and Brian. But I mean, Brian had a great race, so it would have been hard to compete against him anyways.
Fair enough. Still a very solid running for you here tonight. And coming into season 16 for the 2024 overall championship, you came into this race, looks like back in 8th behind Garrett Streets and Michael Sparks. So it's still pretty close up in there in that overall championship. How do you feel about your chances for that and for just this final 12-week span as a whole?
I'm hoping I can definitely increase my spot in the championship. There's some pretty good races that I think I can do pretty decent in, but there's definitely a lot of tougher tracks in this 12 race season that are going to be a grind.
Yeah, of course. Last time we were at New Hampshire, we saw you had a whole lot of speed there, so I feel like that's probably a good one sitting in your books. But next week, heading on over to Richmond, how are you feeling about that place?
Not very confident. I haven't run great at Richmond in any car I've run it in, so the Gen 4s are probably just gonna make it worse.
Fair enough. I mean, we got a whole week to practice, and I'm not going to sit here and keep cutting into your free time. So before I let you sign off here for the evening, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Sparks. Who you want to thank for making this happen here tonight?
I mean, obviously, love to thank you. Good to have you back. Good to have you streaming. Love to thank team and my dad. Just yeah,
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here
that's
tonight.
it.
Congratulations on getting another podium to your name, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Richmond.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. You have a good one.
Y'all as well. You heard it here first, race fans. Your top three finishers here tonight: Brian Zabelski, Brandon Feeney, and Daniel Sparks, rounding out your podium here at Darlington. But of course, these weren't the only drivers here in tonight's race, so how about we take a look down at our unofficial race results as they stand right now. Of course, following your three podium drivers we just listed off, back and forth is going to be the 42 of Michael Sparks back in fourth, followed by the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan in fifth. Back in sixth going to be the K9P Racing 188 of Joshua Rudolph, and then of course Jason Gardner, unable to make it out to the starting grid as he was feeling a bit ill. He will be rounding out the tail end of the field. However, as he did not start the race, he will not be earning any points here tonight. But that's how things are going to be shaken up here at the Darlington Raceway. Great opener to the 2020 or to season 16, excuse me, of the ASRC Oval Series. Only 11 races left before we crown a champion for 2024. And I'll tell you what, race fans, I think this is bound to be an exciting last couple of weeks. For now, though, thank you all for tuning in here to tonight's event, and we look forward to seeing y'all